What's up?
We got it to work.
I mean, it's a miracle, but it's
How you doing?
I am good, thank you.
Yeah,
How
this
are
is the
you?
first time we're actually meeting in, like, visually. We only talked over the
Right.
phone, so
Right.
yeah, super excited. Thank you so much for getting on today. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
So, obviously for our audience, you need no introduction, but Brandi Chastain, two-time FIFA World Cup champion, two-time Olympian, coach, mother, wife, a lot of other things in between. I guess, with this everything going on with mental health and so much identity around sports and everything else, how do you kind of view yourself now as a former athlete?
Well, you know what? So many things are happening, as you said, and even in my life, I'm coaching. I coach youth soccer for the California Thorns here in Northern California, in the San Jose area. I would be coaching high school boys coming up, depending on whether or not that will be happening. We're a winter sport, so I'm holding out hope that winter sports may still have a chance. But I've decided to do what I've been telling my players to do during I think their journey, right? The process of being on a team and growing. And since I work with young athletes, is to find ways to be uncomfortable and to embrace that discomfort with enthusiasm and optimism, and don't let the fear stop you from trying something. So I actually just took a new in-office technical job.
Your real person job.
A real person job. Yeah, it's like a big person job. And
yeah.
I had no experience in it whatsoever. But the person came to me and said, and I think this is a key component. So if you can find people like this in your life, stay around them, which is, I have a positive way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, it's really kind of sad to see, but there's so many student athletes that are losing seasons. They're losing just even the ability to play their sport right now. So I guess, throughout this time, you've made yourself uncomfortable a little bit, but what's some advice that you would have to any, youth athletes all the way through college athletes that may have lost their season or are struggling to even play their sport right now?
Well, I've had the fortune and misfortune, I guess, depends on how you look at it, of missing 2.5 years of collegiate soccer due to ACL reconstructions. And so what I want to make sure everybody understands is that, this, you say you're losing something, but you could gain something else. You could gain perspective, you could gain patience, you can gain strength that you didn't even know you needed, So I know it seems easy to say, and I don't want to be flippant at all and say, hey, deal with it. It is what it is. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, okay, this is the moment that we are in. We can't change that right now. So what can we do? Let's think about the things that we can do. We can write a letter of gratitude to somebody who's meant something to us. We can share a story with a classmate or a teammate about, thanks so much for the help you gave me during last season. I'm really looking forward to seeing you in person when we get together. Gratitude is a huge component of happiness. And so I think in these times when we feel like we're losing things, we need to find the things that make us happy. And so they can be very little things, it's finding the right nectarine at the farmer's market, or, spending a time at social distance with a friend that you haven't seen for a while. So that's what I'm doing. That's,
Yep.
I hope that, those things can also work for other people, because, I think in day to day when things are going smoothly and we don't think about, I just wrote a letter to somebody saying, thank you for walking with me in this journey, because your patience is giving me the determination to finalize this deal. And so that made me feel good. I hope
Yep.
when the person receives it, it makes them feel good. And that just strengthens the bond that we have. And I probably wouldn't have written that letter maybe 4 weeks ago. So I think there's a lot we can do. And my mom was a great proponent of find your yes. which is you're going to hear a lot of no's in your life, when you get beyond this college sports or high school sports. And, not everybody is your champion, which I wish humanity would champion everybody, but, there's going to be people who are going to say no, and you won't, maybe the door will close. But I say you have the courage to knock again and to be persistent. So
yeah, it's all about perspective at the end of the day, right? It's how you perceive things, how things are kind of coming at you. And if you could spin something in a positive way and, realize that there are other opportunities open, it could take you a long way. Maybe not a path that you expected, but it could take you a different way in a long way.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be amazing to find something that you really didn't know existed for you? Like this job right now, sitting in this place, was not in my radar by a million miles. And so I think there's an openness that we all have to embrace if we can. Maybe for some it will be difficult. Like I say to my athletes at training, some of you are naturally gifted in verbal communication skills. You have no problem sharing your voice. It's loud, it's demanding, it's authoritative, it's concise. And then others are, you have the information, but you struggle with sharing and putting your voice out there. And I'm challenging you to be uncomfortable in that and recognize that your voice matters. And so I think that's really, especially for young girls, this is not, my son has this slight aversion to calling people on the phone that he doesn't know. I'm like, why would you be afraid of that? Like, they don't know you, and you have a chance to really make a good impression. Well, what if I say the wrong thing? I'm like, well, part of it is acting like it's not the wrong thing. Like we had a saying with the national team, act as if you know, act as if you are brave, act as if you have the answers. But if you don't really have the answers, say, I don't know, but I'll find out. So I think there's a lot of courage that we have to have right now. And the courage is to find the yes and not be afraid of hearing no.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because you have everybody who's kind of behind a screen now, and you're able to type things and send immediately instead of waiting for somebody to pick up. If they don't, leaving a voicemail. Sometimes people find it to be uncomfortable with even such a small thing as leaving a voicemail. But,
yes.
As you get older, no matter what generation you are, it's still something you have to do, especially once you get into business. And I think, especially with sport, it does such a great job of teaching you all of those skills to kind of bring you to that professional setting. And, you and I spoke last time about, especially with women's sports, but there's such a small percentage of college athletes or even athletes in general that go on to play professionally. And then
right.
Once you are professional, unfortunately, especially for women, they're at living below poverty line. They're not, really, they're having to have second jobs. So do you want to just talk about your perspective on that a little bit, and how important it is to realize that when you are a college athlete, you're picking for your school first and foremost in your education?
Well, listen, I don't want to condemn anybody for the process, because I know how influenced I was by soccer. Soccer meant so much to me, and it still does today. And a lot of the times it drives my decisions because it makes me feel good. And who doesn't want to feel good every day, right? Doing the thing that they love. And if you can find something you love that becomes your career, wow, you are a very blessed person. So in the process of finding the right place for yourself, the good thing is there's a lot of great places out there for you. The most important thing I would say to the group that's of the age of this recruitable athlete, I'm trying to find my next home, because that's what it will be. It's going to be like your home with your family. And those will be the people you'll be around most, is do your research. What does that mean? So in this time, it's a little bit more difficult because we're not getting on planes and we're not going to places. But, do more than just read the front page. Delve deeper, get into what makes it special, whether that's the size, the geography, the great weather, or the cold weather. Maybe I have one player's like, I love the rain. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the region of the country you should be in. Okay, so that's one thing. I would say then, as a player, What are you looking for? Where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses? And when you go to watch that team, watch the team, see if you can get video. Video is everywhere now. So you can, listen and watch the games and say, oh, I see myself fitting in there, or that doesn't really look like it fits me. Then you're armed with some information that you can then ask the coaches. Hey, I noticed this in a game. And they'll be like, wow, that player watched what we're doing. And I saw this. Oh, wow, now she's actually not just watching, she's actually evaluating. And here's where I believe I could fit. Okay, she has the confidence to say what her strengths are, and said, I want to learn how to do this. Okay, she's willing to take information, and she's coachable. So that right there, I think, is like multi-layered. If you can do that, then you become, I think, one, more informed, and then two, you become more desirable, right? Because you're invested in yourself. You're not just skimming the surface. Hi, my name is Brandi. I want to go to your college and play soccer.
Yep, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we definitely stress at LRT too. It's just like, you have to understand yourself before you even can go into a situation and ask coaches about anything. Because what if you're asking questions about studying abroad, but you don't really want to study abroad ever? And that's something that you have to think about, and you have to know what you want. And it's hard to say that to, somebody who's between the ages of 14 and 18, but there's at least conversations that you can have with your parents or coaches or trusted individuals to start this whole research process and really getting to know colleges. And as you mentioned, it's so difficult right now, but I know, we have a ton of virtual campus tours, but uvisit.com, YouTube, even you could YouTube a kid just walking around campus. There's so many different things that you can, you have all the power in the world with the internet. If this happened 20 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to know anything, it would have been a way different game. But right now everybody's armed with so much information, which is great, and will make the process at least a little bit easier. But from a coaching perspective with recruiting, I keep telling everybody, recruiting's not stopping. You got to keep working. You got to keep your grades up. You got to keep going right now. But how do you see this whole COVID situation playing out? Now, I'm not asking you to predict the future, because I know that can't happen. But, what advice would you give to potential student athletes as far as just what should they be doing right now from a mental perspective or a physical perspective to prepare for college athletics?
Well, first I want to ask you a question. In terms of that, are you talking about someone who is just about to get into their college season, or are we talking about a little bit younger, just starting out their high school, and they're not quite getting into college yet?
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit younger. Let's start there, and then we can see where the conversation goes. But I think, starting a little bit younger, who hasn't quite gotten to that stage and they're considering.
Well, obviously, since we all are living in different places, and my county is, much more on lockdown than some other counties in California, or even, other states. So we all have our different restrictions and rules that we have to abide by. I would say know the rules where you are, and please abide by them and stay safe. Number one priority is your safety. But I would say, be creative. And what I mean by that is, you're going to have to find ways to keep moving. I started working in an office. This is not my jam. I'll tell you that right now, people. Like I've been a person who's been on the move. So I've instituted 5 minutes of fitness in my office. I get up off my desk. I tell my colleagues, let's go. We walk around in circles. We do, 3.5 minutes of walking and 1.5 minutes of some kind of exercise. So there's ways to be creative that can keep you moving. So that's just a general moving. So soccer specific, for example, multiple touches on the ball. Like I see a lot of YouTube videos and things, and I'm like, man, if I had seen this when I was a kid, I'd be out in my backyard or kicking the ball against the wall, doing this for hours, which is what I ended up doing without YouTube, right? Because it was the only thing I had. I didn't have anybody to play with. So for me, this COVID situation is kind of reminiscent of what my soccer pre-college was like, because I loved playing, but I didn't have that many people to play with when it wasn't soccer practice time. Then when it's soccer practice, like we are having groups of 12, at a social distance situation. And so now I, as a coach, I have to be creative to help my players still feel like they're at soccer practice without having that competitive, combative thing. So I would say it's up to the players to go to the field with a mindset that I'm going to get better today, right? That's not the coach's responsibility. So how do I make that happen? So for a lot of people, it's just starting with the right attitude, right? Um, if you know the day is going to be a hard day, and I'm going to totally admit and throw myself under the bus right now, which is to say, I was not tough. I did not have the mental fortitude to say, I know it's going to be tough and I'm going to be fine. My mental fortitude was, oh my God, I can't do this. My knee's hurting, so I'm going to sit on the sideline. And that took a long time to get over. And when I finally realized that what was on the other side of that discomfort was this exhilaration and this joy and this, oh my gosh, I could do that, then I really had some strength. And so that's what I would say to the kids. So, it's get better, be creative, um, be ready with the attitude of, I'm going to get better today. It could be 2 minutes of work, it could be 20 minutes of work, it could be by yourself, it could be with someone, but you've already determined that you will be better from whatever it is you're about to do. And if you have that attitude, anything is possible.
Awesome. And you've had your fair share of injuries and, quite a bit of
Oh,
stories as far as that's concerned. But what can you say to any athletes of any age, maybe even particularly college, that once, everything gets back to normal, and they may get injured or anything like that, what has been your mentality that has been successful for you when it comes to injuries?
this is again, I don't want to speak to everybody as if
Mm-hmm.
one size fits all, because I don't think that's fair, because we all have our own feelings, we all have our own experiences, we all live in different circumstances. However, I loved soccer. And the only thing I could imagine once I was injured is getting back to that playing part, right? So what was it going to take for me to get there? And because the first time I was injured, I didn't know what that journey was going to be like. So I felt like it was a little bit long and it was arduous, and it was like it was the up and down and up and down, and I would see a lot of progress, and all of a sudden it would be like, things would stall, and sometimes even take a little bit of a back step, right? So I think what you have to know, the journey is long. It's a process, and I think you have to come to love the process. If you want this thing at the end, you got to enjoy the process that it's going to take to get better. Again, I think it goes back to what I said at the beginning. Put yourself near people with positive um, outlooks on life, people who are go-getters, people who will be proactive about things. So there's one thing to have to wait around for somebody to tell you what to do, and then there's people who get up and say, oh, I see something over there, I'm going to go and help with that. So I would say put yourself around those people. Know that every day you're one day closer to where you want to be. And so if it helps you, like it helped me, if I could compartmentalize today and say, I'm going to win this day, and today is getting me one step closer, I feel really good at the end of the day. Nothing can defeat me because I'm not getting farther away from that day, I'm getting closer. So I feel like attitude and persistence and people help put me in a good mindset for overcoming, having overcome the injuries I've had. I will tell you that a part of it also is feeling that you're contributing, right? I feel like there's a lot of people out there like myself who have experienced injuries, and then as soon as that happens, you become removed from what's actually happening, because you don't get to do the same activities as you once did. You're not capable of contributing in the physical sense, right? And so how do you contribute in that way? I think that is also a very critical piece. So know that you're important, whether it's cheering for somebody who is working, whether it's telling the coach, hey, I noticed this. I want you to know this is how the team's feeling. It's going to the physical trainer and saying, hey, I'm feeling good today. Is there anything else I can do? Or going to the trainer and being honest and saying, you know what, I'm not feeling great today. And what shouldn't I do, or what can I do to maybe feel better? I think that honesty and knowing honesty about how we are feeling, the understanding that you matter even though you're on the sideline. When you show your teammates that you also are working hard, they can say, I'm working for that player over there, and she's working for me, from over there. So I think, those are ways that I absolutely use and at different times, to get through that journey I was taking.
Yeah, and it's always a mental battle and a process, as far as, you're always growing as an individual. And, we've talked about this before, but it's what you take from sport is just so important in, like, later in life, and
Yes.
learning to deal with these difficulties or different situations just help you better prepare for life after college sports or professional sports or whatever it may be. Just
yeah,
because
because newsflash, life is coming at you, and it's real.
Brandi's
right?
sitting at a desk right now.
It is real, people. It's so real, but it's so good. It can be so good. You get to determine whether it's good or not.
Right. And, I think one of the things, not just with the recruiting, but every part of life, I see not some people, but, just individuals falling into maybe misconceptions or things that they have. Well, I have this planned that I'm going to this school, even though they've never visited the school, or I have this plan that I'm going to have this exact job. And then they might get into a situation where they sit back and they're there and they're like, I don't know if I like this, but I said that this was my goal, so I'm still going to go there. So, can you just talk about maybe just having an open mind, and just, again, I know it's your perspective and it's no cookie cutter advice, but, to a degree, you like you said, you're just putting yourself out there right now, and you tried something that you probably never thought you would do. But, going into a situation with an open mind, what is your perspective on that from sports or any other, kind of recruiting or anything else, or even coaching?
Yeah, so I really love sports for a lot of different reasons. One, I love the physical component. I love the competition. I love the camaraderie. I love being outside. I'm crazy about, getting better. And so in terms of what you're asking, another reason I love sports is because the game is different every time, right? And so the unpredictability of sport can become slightly more predictable the more you engage in it, right? So you recognize cues visually, or you recognize cues verbally. And so you start to get sophisticated, right? And doing these things. And so when you get into these tough life situations, like, we're talking about, you're like, oh, I handled something like this before. If you have a plan, this is way out in your future, everybody. So if there's any parents listening, I'm not talking about right now. But I have heard women before, and friends of mine, say, I have a birth plan, like I have a son. And I'm thinking, when I, have a plan, this is your plan. I'm like, oh my gosh, after I went through having my son, I was like, babies don't care if you have a plan. Like, they do whatever they want, right? So it was a perfect reminder of, life should be unpredictable in times. There are times when we absolutely 100% have to put our hands on things and be in control. But part of the joy of life is embracing this unpredictability about it, and then using your skills that you've learned in sports to apply it, right? So I'm out on a bike ride this morning. Before I come to work, I take my dog for a run. She runs next to me while I bike. And I saw on Instagram a former player of mine. And I notice, I send her a note, and she tells me a story. And, she's a young player at a established location with lots of A-type personality players. And she's seeing something she knows isn't right. So what do? You don't, do you step up as a young player and say something? Can you assert leadership? It's all the things that we're learning along the way. And I say, well, leadership is hard. So are you going to try to influence positive culture? Are you going to try to use your voice for good? Or are you going to allow somebody else, because of age or because of veteran status, to diminish your voice and to diminish what it is could be helpful for the team? And I'm not answering those questions for her. I want her to be able to do that. So I think, this unpredictability of circumstances, this game plan, so to speak, that you're talking about, needs to have a little wiggle room, because life is full of wonderful opportunities, and you will miss some if you're too narrow mindset. We're all talking about this growth mindset, and I think that is a platform most people would love to be in. But sometimes we do get stuck in this is the way I have to do it. But I would say take a deep breath, maybe 2 or 3, and try it another way and see it's not so bad.
Right.
And
right.
and be agile, because like sports, if you're not agile, you're out of the game.
Right, exactly. One more question for you, and it kind of parlays off of that a little bit, but what are your thoughts or advice or anything in general? And again, I know this is your perspective, but people who are dealing with social pressure, and you said something just now, as far as don't let anybody else kind of dictate where your decision making goes, but there's a lot of social pressure as far as I need to verbally commit too soon. I need to be doing X, Y, and Z. I need to be on this club team. And, I think there's a lot of value in what you were saying earlier, which is just look to get better every day. Obviously, you need to have your goals, but what about for people who are feeling social pressure or even feeling discouraged from the recruiting process because they feel like they're not where they quote unquote should be because of what others are saying or doing around them?
Yeah, this is a tough one. And I'm going to acknowledge that it's not an easy process. It's not an easy process. So I want everybody to know that, but I also want you to know you're not alone. You're not alone in this process either. And so the more you can align yourself with the people that we were talking about earlier, the more beneficial it will be. Also, I think part of this process is, again, arming yourself with knowledge. When you do that, then you can make educated decisions that will get you to the place that probably you should be. Listening to yourself. We all play sports, and in sports, if you don't have instincts, you won't last very long, right? So I think your gut reaction, your gut response, the way something makes you feel is valuable. So please listen to that. Be in tune with yourself. Know yourself. It's very important. This is hard because this gets to that peer pressure that you're talking about. Well, they did this. Okay, well, I am not built like, sound like, feel like anybody else on this planet. So if I try to compare myself to someone else, I'm always going to be disappointed because I'll never match them. I'll never match them. So to every person out there who's looking for that next best place, it will happen differently for you than it happens for other people. And actually, that's kind of cool. You have your own story. You have your own way. Let me just tell you, I feel like my story is something that will maybe give everybody such great levity, right? So I made a choice. Well, I will say back then, nobody was making decisions in their freshman year in high school, which nobody really should be, because you're not really experienced enough to know all that's out there. And as much as my 14-year-old son, who I love to the depths of my soul and beyond, he thinks he knows things, which I love that he is confident in himself, but he doesn't know things. He hasn't lived long enough to know. So I didn't decide until my senior year, and I decided to go to a university not far away, but it had a lot of external things that weren't really going to influence me in terms of like, you know, going to big football games, and, you know, it had a big name, and it was close enough that my parents could, you know, come to watch me play, but not too close that I was in the backyard. And so I saw the excitement on my parents' face. My grandfather was so excited, and I liked the people that I met, and I liked the players on the soccer team. But there was something that I just was like, I'm not really sure about, but it made other people happy. And so I made the choice to go there. And I will tell you, the experience was awesome. It was awesome because it put me totally out of my comfort zone. I loved learning before that. I was a terrible student. The honest truth was I did not give it everything I had. I didn't know. I was too naive to, at the moment. I'm going to chalk it up to that. I was too naive and too immature, and obviously not quite ready for this massive university experience. And I'm super happy for those people who are, because I'm impressed by them, because it takes a lot to be independent in a place like that. So in the fall, I had a great soccer season. Freshman player of the year, I scored over 20 goals, and we made it to the, was it Elite Eight, or like we made it pretty far into the playoffs. And so it was a great story. Everything was awesome. My academics was terrible, so it wasn't as great as it could have been, but it was good for me to learn how to manage myself, which took a long time to figure out. And then in the spring, I tore my ACL. So then I redshirted that the next fall, and I still wasn't doing well in school, and I wasn't enjoying myself. And I did not have enough experience with the place and the atmosphere and the expectations to know that that wasn't the right place for me. Mm-hmm. And so I got the School of Hard Knocks, and I learned on my feet. And so I ended up coming home. And when I came home, I ended up going to a junior college, which is an awesome pathway. Don't overlook junior college, because
I agree.
It's it really has it's a great place to get all your AA classes done, and then you can get onto your major. And so it's not, please don't overlook it if you're thinking about it and you feel like pressured into, no, I have to go to this other place. It is a great option. And then I was there getting my grades back in order and all the credits I needed to transfer back to a four-year university, and I tore my other ACL. And I had just 1 week before that committed to going to Santa Clara. And so 1 week after that, I tore my second ACL, and I was 6 months away from playing collegiate soccer again. Whew, that was a big blow. That was a big blow, because I knew how long the process was, and I knew how hard it was. But again, going back to, I was determined to make it back on the field. And so the bottom line is that your pathway will not be the same as my pathway, and neither will your pathway be the same as your best friend's. And it's really important that you don't make choices based on what other people are doing, that you don't make choices based on what's trendy at the moment. You know, you please take a minute to know and accept who you are, and find moments where you can really improve yourself.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't have said it better myself. That was awesome. So thank you for that story. Yeah. And thank you for joining us today. Thanks for joining LRT Sports. Huge shout out to Hannah Russell for setting this all up. And she just graduated from Santa Clara.
Yeah, so. Go Broncos!
I know.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Hannah, for setting this up, and thanks for all your advice. Any last words or any pieces of advice, or you think you covered it all?
Gosh, you know what, we did. The word I didn't say today. Well, I'm going to say it at the end. I'm going to say, I think it's important that we champion ourselves and we champion those around us, right? That we don't, I think for women especially, we've been fighting each other for that one position that was available to us. And now, doors have been thrown open. I mean, Billie Jean King has been such a pioneer for women for so many decades that I want to thank her for giving myself, the women's national team, every other woman that's playing sports, the courage to say, yes, we can, and we're going to do this. And so the opportunities for young women, and due to those courageous enough to put Title IX into action in 1972, critical, right? To all of us being able to even sit here and talk about the potentials of scholarships and the next level sports. So I'm really grateful to those who have really been plentiful in their information and their advice. Also, I want to let everybody know that what I'm working on is City Cheers Media. So go to citycheers.com, and it's going to be the wave of the future. And I would love to create a workforce of women. I want them to be in my network, to go out there and make positive impacts on the community that they're living in. And so if you want to join my team, and you are, once you graduate college, that is, come to me. I want to help women who are who have played sports, who understand teamwork, who are driven and have a great work ethic, who ultimately, and this is the last word I want to use, want to have fun, right? Because work, I think, gets a bad rap. Every job is valuable. You have to embrace every job. Like, if you didn't do this job, the next job couldn't get done. And nobody should look at anybody and say that job isn't worthy of me. Yeah. So I want to help young women to be successful, and I want to create a workforce of women who want to, be go-getters. And so come find me, and let's work together and have fun.
If anybody out there who knows me, I'll put you in touch with Brandi if you want to reach out to me first. So yeah, right, and I can put you in touch with her. But again, thanks so much. Thanks to Hannah, former intern, recent grad of Santa Clara, for setting this up. And Brandi, thank you so much. Your insight was amazing. And thanks again. Just really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And I will say, enjoy the ride, enjoy the process. And congratulations on getting to this point. And I look forward to all of you telling me about your journeys.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandi. Have a great day.
Thank you.